Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. It is Friday, September 6th. I appreciate all of you guys spending your Friday afternoons with me. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over an incredible Week 1 kickoff game between Patrick Mahomes and the two-time defending Super Bowl champion Chiefs and the reigning AFC championship losers, reigning MVP Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. An incredible game that came down to as close as you possibly can to overtime. Literally a toenail out of bounds. What a great way to kick off the NFL season. We're going to continue on this NFL train in this segment, predicting the next 14 games of the slate, all of them in Week 1 other than the Monday Night Football, which we will reserve for our show on Monday. So in this segment, we're going to talk about the Green Bay Packers taking on the Eagles tonight, as well as all 13 games on Sunday. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, spending your Friday afternoon talking some sports with me. But like I was saying, we are going to get into our predictions for Week 1 of the NFL season. Starting off with tonight's game in Sao Paulo, Brazil, the first game in NFL history taking place in South America. It's going to be a great game. Jordan Love, the newly minted $55 million man, taking on Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, and the Eagles. It's going to be a lot of fun tonight. I cannot wait. This game currently has the Philadelphia Eagles favored by 2.5 points. This is going to be an interesting one. I did say in the intro to the whole episode, I have 4 upset picks. We're going by the spread to see if they're upsets or not. Because in my mind, every game I pick is not an upset because I think they're going to win it. But the Green Bay Packers just made it to the second round of the playoffs. The Philadelphia Eagles are coming off of a collapse at the end of their season. They went 10-1 to start last season, finished off 1-6, including a loss in the playoffs. And cracks were forming between their quarterback, their head coach. They fired their defensive coordinator, which was the right move. Vic Fangio should come in and shore up that defense a lot more, than Matt Patricia was doing. That being said, I still think there is some sort of divide in that Eagles locker room. And winning cures all, but it's going to take a bit to heal because reports that I've heard, and I'm not sure how true they are, so take this with a grain of salt. Nick Sirianni, the head coach, and quarterback Jalen Hurts cannot be in a room alone together. And that is not a good thing. You need to be able, your quarterback and your head coach need to be able to work together, regardless of how involved in the offense the head coach is. That's just something that needs to be able to, that's just the relationship that needs to work. And right now, that's not happening. So all of that being said, I am taking Green Bay tonight, 31-28. Hello, Anthony. Welcome into the show. Moving on to Sunday. The first game on the slate for Sunday, hitting the 1 o'clock games, we have Minnesota heading to New York to take on the New York Giants. The Giants and the Vikings are in kind of similar situations, at least quarterback-wise. You know, you talk about a team that's not expecting this year to be this quarterback this year to be the guy. Next year, they expect to have that guy. Daniel Jones is technically on a contract year for the Giants. Last time on his contract year was also the last time they played the Vikings. They beat them in the first round of the playoffs. Sam Darnold comes into New York this time, still toting a lot of great weapons. This game is going to be interesting. I think what this game is going to come down to is that interior offensive line for the Vikings going to be able to hold up against the pass rush of Dexter Lawrence? Is that offensive line going to be able to hold up against this really, really good defensive line. Now, the corners for the Giants aren't the greatest. They do re-sign Adoree Jackson later in the offseason, but they have a healthy Jordan Addison that came out today. The Vikings, of course, have Justin Jefferson. They should cook. The question is, will Sam Darnold be the guy? I personally don't know if they will. I think this is going to be a very low-scoring game. I think it's going to be more incompetence on the offense's part than the defense for why it's a low-scoring game. I'm taking the Giants in my second upset of the week to win 17-20. Right now, Minnesota is favored by 1.5 points, although I could see this one very easily going in Minnesota's favor. Anthony asks, he says, in a previous show in the NBA, but he couldn't answer this. If the NFL were to realign and add more teams, would you think Miami would get put in the AFC South and Indy in the AFC East? That's an interesting question. When you talk about division realignments, I think you can do geography as much as you want, but a lot of these are held together by, rivalries. And I think the fact you're asking about Miami and Indy, I think Indy in the AFC East might have some strong ties to the Patriots. As far as putting Miami in the AFC South, maybe it depends where these teams get at it. I could absolutely see that happening. You have the Jacksonville-Miami, you get the interstate rivalry there, as opposed to them going up into the Northeast. Indy was in the AFC East previously. They had, connections with the Patriots there. And I think absolutely it could work. Anthony says that's an old school fan mentality. In your opinion, I think they just, because you're not in the same division, you can't have rivalries. You're absolutely right. It's just it helps when you play 2 games a year to really solidify rivalries. That's why the strongest ones are in division. That's why the Cowboys are still in the NFC East. It's because of that rivalry kind of sense of things. And it's not to say that the rivalry with the now Commanders wouldn't still exist. It would just be lessened because, they don't play each other twice a year and there's not as much animosity between them. But I do get your point that I do absolutely think you're right that if there was realignment, again, it depends where these teams come in, but Miami could absolutely, that the Miami and Indy switch could absolutely happen. We will get to your other question, Miami, Jacksonville. Actually, you know what? We can do that one now. Miami takes on Jacksonville in Miami. Anthony asks, do I have Jacksonville upsetting Miami? I do not. I do not. And we'll get to why in a second. The reason, very simply, for why I have Miami beating Jacksonville is because the secondary in Jacksonville. I think Tua is going to be able to. I think Tua, Tyreek, and Jalen Waddle are going to do basically whatever they want against that secondary, carve them up. I actually don't have this one as a very close game. I have Jacksonville losing 16-34. That's not to say that this is a game that Jacksonville can't win. I think their offense has the capability to keep up with the Dolphins. I just don't see a world where that Jacksonville secondary is able to hold up against the weapons and Mike McDaniel's system. One more thing on that division realignment thing. Anthony says that's where I disagree. You can make the rivalry game more important if you didn't have to play them multiple times. You're right. It's just the fact that you play them every year. You play every other team once every 4 years. And that, again, takes away from some of the rivalry things. I do understand the point you're saying. And this is a good discussion. I'll have a whole segment on this later, actually. This is a really good idea. So thank you for that. But I do want to get back to this real quick. Cap for Life says 14-team PPR, Stroud, Jacobs, Achane, McBride, Rice need 2 out of 4. Sutton, Shakir, Singletary, or Coleman. Do I pick up Wilson, drop Dobbs? Which Wilson are you talking about, first of all? Second of all, you're out of the two of the 4 at the bottom. I'm going to lean towards whichever one of those Buffalo receivers you think is going to be the biggest. I might lean towards Coleman. I think both of those might have good games. And as much as I want to say Singletary, I can't trust the Giants offense right now. So we'll go with Sutton and whichever one of those Buffalo Bills wide receivers you like more. I like Coleman a little more, but they're kind of 1A, 1B right now until I see exactly how it works in the offense. I like Romeo Doubs, but, Arizona's Wilson, I lean towards Romeo Doubs a little more. I don't know what his target share is going to be. I have a friend who's doing fantasy. He wants to know both of his quarterbacks are young quarterbacks. One is Anthony Richardson, one is Caleb. Ooh, that is tough. I lean towards Anthony Richardson in this one, just because I like his rushing upside, but I don't think you can go wrong with either of them. Getting back to the predictions real quick. Arizona taking on Buffalo is actually the next one on the list. And your question about which receivers to start is a very good one because I think this one is going to be very high scoring. I love Arizona's offense. Arizona's offense is an offense that I have a lot of shares in fantasy. I love Kyler Murray. I love Marvin Harrison. Trey McBride, I think, could be really good this year, as well as James Conner, which I have actually a lot of shares of, but he's getting slept on a little bit. As far as Buffalo goes, their defense is also a little concerning to me. They lost basically their entire secondary. Matt Milano, the heart of the defense, tears his bicep, is out for most, if not all, of the season. That is a huge loss. I still think Buffalo, who's favored by 6.5 points, is going to be able to pull this one out, but I think it's going to be very close, and I think there's a definite chance for Arizona to win this one. I have Buffalo winning 38-35 in a close one. New England at Cincinnati. Cincinnati is an 8.5 point favorite in this one. In this one, Cincinnati just is the better team. Straight up, the questions with the wide receivers right now makes it a little bit of a closer decision. T. Higgins is doubtful. That one hurts. Jamar Chase is questionable. We don't know if he's going to play because of a contract. He said he might still play, which, makes me a little more optimistic about him playing. If he plays, they win pretty easily. If not, I still think they win, but it's not going to be as much. Right now, I'm going off the assumption Jamar Chase is playing. I have them winning over New England 24-10. Anthony says, I think it's possible Jacksonville upsets Miami because they have so much tape from last year. That's a very good point, but so does Miami on Jacksonville, and that offense hasn't changed. Also, because you also say McDaniel relies so much on the middle of the field because he doesn't trust Tua to throw outside the numbers, and you're right about that. The only thing is Tyreek and Jalen Waddle are good enough receivers that's just simply not going to matter. You can't chase them across the field on crossing routes. Tua's accuracy makes it easy for him to pick apart zone defenses. It's just kind of a nightmare to go against. And I get what you're saying. Like I said, I think there's a way for them to win. I just don't trust that secondary enough. And I'm willing to eat my words. You come back on Monday. If Jacksonville wins, you can brag to me all you want, Anthony. But I just don't feel very confident in this Jacksonville defense as it stands right now. Up next, we have the rookie debut of the first overall pick, Bears Caleb Williams at home, taking on the Tennessee Titans. The Bears favored by 3.5 points. This is going to be a fun game. Will Levis and that revamped Titans offense, revamped Titans defense. I love what the Titans did this offseason, but I do think the Bears will take care of business. I think that Caleb Williams at home in front of the Bears fans, that stadium's going to be sold out. It's going to be loud. It's just not going to be the environment for the Titans to really have their breakout. They're missing DeAndre Hopkins this week. That's going to hurt a lot. We've seen last year in Jacksonville, Calvin Ridley is not the guy that you can really put as that X receiver on the outside. He just doesn't have that same kind of separation as he does when he is in the slot, which is why I think he wasn't very good in Jacksonville. But that being said, the Bears win 24-20. Up next, not as exciting of a game, but still one I think could be close. Carolina taking on the New Orleans Saints. In New Orleans, the Saints are favored by 4 points. Again, in New Orleans, I think Bryce Young is going to have a good year. Not a year that makes the Panthers really blow up, but a year that makes the world see that Bryce Young is not a bust. That being said, this Saints defense is getting slept on a little bit. I like their offense just fine. It's not going to be a great offense. It's not going to be a bad offense. It's going to sit somewhere right in the middle. The Saints win 24-17. Then we have Pittsburgh taking on the Atlanta Falcons. The Steelers are in an interesting situation. They extend Pat Freiermuth, their tight end, a 4-year contract worth $48 million earlier today. And after naming Russell Wilson the starter, he is hurt, did not practice today, and is questionable to start against Atlanta. If I'm being completely honest, I don't think it matters. That defense is not good enough, and I think Atlanta has a lot of momentum coming in from this offseason, especially at home. That place will be loud. I'm giving this one to Atlanta. I'm assuming Justin Fields is starting too. And I personally like Justin Fields a little bit more than Russell Wilson, but neither one of them has separated a lot from each other in training camp, in the preseason, so I don't think it'll matter too much. Atlanta wins 31-14. Anthony says back to Carolina and New Orleans. He has New Orleans winning by 10 because he doesn't trust the Carolina defense. You're absolutely right. I think we're pretty much along the same lines there. I think I think that defense just isn't going to do it, and I like the Saints defense a little bit. I'm just taking that little bit of an upside as a 7-point game instead of 10 based on my belief in Bryce Young. Getting down to the back half of this schedule, Houston taking on Indy, and this is the third of these upsets that I've picked. Right now, Houston is favored by 3 points. They're coming into Indianapolis. Everyone in the world is high on them. They're coming off of an insane run. C.J. Stroud coming off of one of the best rookie quarterback seasons in the history of the NFL. Heading into Anthony Richardson's house. And I am a big fan of Anthony Richardson. If you've been watching this show, you know that I put him as my dark horse pick to win MVP, which might be a little bit much. He's my third place MVP winner right now. If we go through the odds, he's my third pick to win MVP. I really like this Colts team. I think this is going to be a close game, but I think Indy's going to pull this one out at home, winning 21-23. Then less of an exciting game, but also I think a close game. The Chargers taking on the Las Vegas Raiders in LA. Chargers currently favored by 3. That's that home field advantage, that 2.5-point advantage. Otherwise, it probably would be a pick'em. I am leaning towards the Chargers. The Chargers don't usually do good in tight games, but both of these teams are bad. Point blank period, both of these teams are bad. I like the Gardner Minshew with Devontae Adams connection. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Outside of that, there's not much. The Chargers defense, not great. Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins are the only thing to look forward to on that Raiders defense, and they should eat against this Chargers line, but the Chargers are going to run the ball a lot, and I think it's going to be just enough to win this game, 24-26. The Chargers start off the Jim Harbaugh era with a win. Heading to Seattle for a Denver Broncos Seattle Seahawks game. The Seahawks are favored by 6 points. The Denver Broncos, Bo Nix, starting as a rookie, the first rookie to start in the Broncos uniform since John Elway, all the way back in the 1980s. It's been a long time, but Bo Nix played his way into that job. I still don't think they're going to be a very good team, but Bo Nix looks solid. He knows what he's doing. Cortland Sutton seems like a good weapon. There are going to be a lot of checkdowns. A lot of checkdowns in this game. I don't think they're going to be able to move the ball very well. Mike McDonald, former defensive coordinator of the Ravens, comes over as the head coach. I really like him. I like the scheme he has, and I think Seattle, under his scheme, could return to form defensively. I think this is just not a good matchup in the first game for Bo Nix and the Broncos, as the Broncos fall 10-27. Then we get Dallas versus Cleveland. And this line was shocking to me. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. This line is shocking to me. Real quick, Anthony says, I think Jim Harbaugh is going to try and prove a point in his first game, and the Chargers are going to win, and it's going to be a blowout. I just don't believe in this Chargers team enough for it to be a blowout. In fact, I think the Raiders might even be a better team, if only slightly. But I do think that Jim Harbaugh debut is going to be able to push them over to a win. So I like your reasoning there, Anthony. But getting back to Dallas at Cleveland. This game is shocking to me. This is the fourth of the 4 upsets that I've picked. Dallas is an underdog. I know it's in Cleveland, but that Dallas offense is going to do its thing regardless of how good this Cleveland defense is. Myles Garrett might be able to slow them down, but this is still a really good Dallas offense. Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb. There's just no way they can cover them all game long. I know that running game is a little bit weaker, but I have Dallas winning 28-21. Cleveland favored by 2.5. I just simply don't get that one. Again, I don't really see a way that Cleveland wins this game. I don't trust their offense. I don't trust Deshaun Watson until he proves to me that he can play football again. I'm just not going to trust him. So Dallas, that's the fourth of the 4 underdog picks that I have for this game, which leaves 2 games remaining on Sunday. Washington taking on Tampa Bay in Tampa. Jaden Daniels' debut game, not at home. This Washington defense is going to be an issue. Real quick before we get into that, Anthony says he has Cleveland winning this game. He doesn't trust Dallas for some odd reason, which I understand. Dallas lost a lot of talent. He's not sure if the consistency of the running game or the linebackers on the defensive side. I would lean more towards the running game. I don't trust that running game led by Zeke, Dalvin Cook, and Rico Dowdle. I don't really trust any of those guys. But the offensive line is better. That defense is going to be just fine. They have Trayvon Diggs back. They lose DeRon Bland, but they were able to survive without Trayvon Diggs last time. And I think that offensive line is going to be just fine. Zeke isn't going to go out and rush for 100 yards. None of those guys are, but they'll be able to get you 30 to 50, and their passing game can do the rest. But getting back to Washington at Tampa, Jaden Daniels is going to be a lot of fun to watch. I am so excited for Jaden Daniels this season. I want to see what he can do against Tampa. Mike Evans kills it against Washington every single time they play. Look for him to have a huge game with Baker Mayfield. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers take game 1 as 3.5-point favorites, 17-23. And finally, the last game of the Sunday slate, a rematch of the Matthew Stafford Bowl from the playoffs last year. The Rams head back to Detroit. Detroit is a 4.5-point favorite. Sunday Night Football, Matt Stafford back to Detroit for just the second time ever. This one should be a lot of fun in the playoffs. It was a 1-point game coming down to the stretch. I think it's going to be very similar. I love what Detroit did this offseason. They brought in Tim Patrick. I think he's going to be huge as a second wide receiver. I'm not sure if they're going to call him up for the practice squad or not. Amon-Ra St. Brown, going to do his thing. That rushing game, going to do their thing, especially on an Aaron Donald-less defensive line. And I think that's going to be the difference in this game. I would lean Los Angeles because they got healthier, but I like the defensive moves by Detroit as well. And the lack of Aaron Donald makes this push, in my opinion, a little bit more in the favor of Detroit. I have Detroit winning 24-30. But let me know about anything you guys, any of these games you guys thought. I only picked 2 teams to win on the road, and one of them is in Brazil. So really only one true road game I picked as the road team to win, which is a little interesting, but home field advantage is a real thing in the NFL. So we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to predict some college football games. I got 10 of those. It's a little bit less than this segment. We're going to go over the biggest 10 games that I can think of for this week, talk about some upsets, what I think they're going to do, and some score predictions as well. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.